Welcome back to the Science of Turning Back Time. I'm so glad you've joined me for episode 2, where we will continue to deep dive into living not just a longer life, but a healthier, more vibrant one. Last week, we talked about healthspan versus lifespan, how the goal isn't just to add years to your life, but add life to your years. I also shared my own journey, including my less than perfect biological age results, and how I'm dedicating this year to diving deeper into the science of aging well. And today we're tackling a big topic, which is ultra-processed foods. It's been in the media a lot. Most people will be aware of some of the issues around it, but they're everywhere, from our breakfast cereals to what's seemingly innocent granola bars and quick convenient microwave meals. But what they really are doing to our bodies, and more importantly to our health span, is what we're going to be talking about today. So first things first, what exactly are ultra-processed foods? Well, the term refers to foods that are industrially manufactured. You'll often notice these have 5 or more ingredients. That's just kind of a simple term, but you can often, when you look at the ingredients, they're not just natural. You'll find there are preservatives and emulsifiers, sometimes artificial colors and flavors, thickeners, and even sweeteners that you wouldn't find in your typical quick kitchen. So, if you're looking at ingredients and things on that list aren't typically in your kitchen, chances are that the food is ultra-processed. So these foods, they've been designed to be hyper-palatable, meaning they hit all the right notes. They're salty, they're sweet and fatty, and they keep us wanting more. There's a whole science around the food industry, and the food industry spends billions of pounds perfecting these formulas, because of the more we eat, the more we buy. And let's be honest, they are convenient, often cheaper. And here's the thing, they're often marketed as healthy choices. And so often you'll find there are misleading labels that can make you think that something is really healthy. And when you look at the ingredients, they're actually not. I'm seeing more and more of this on the shelves. I'm seeing products that are marketed as being high protein products. And then when you go in and you see what's in there, it's just, a ton of sugar. So be careful to not be drawn in by labels that may be looking like something is healthy when in fact it's not. Well, and you might be wondering, okay, what's the harm? Well, research has increasingly shown us that ultra-processed foods are linked to a whole host of chronic health issues. So we're talking about obesity, type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, cancer, and cognitive decline. So there was a study recently published in the journal JAMA Neurology, which is a very prestigious journal, which found that individuals who were eating more than 20% of their daily calories from ultra-processed foods had a 28% faster rate of cognitive decline compared to those who did not eat or ate fewer processed foods. That's a shocking statistic, right? When we think about maintaining our brain into older age. And, I don't know about you, but for me, my brain is my biggest asset. And I certainly wouldn't want to do anything that's going to limit its lifespan or to cause a decline earlier than I'd like to see that happening. It's not just about what these foods contain, it's also what these foods lack. So ultra-processed foods are often stripped of fiber and vitamins and things like phytonutrients. And these are the very nutrients that support our gut health and brain function, as well as our immune resilience. They're also crucial for maintaining healthy cell membranes and reducing inflammation, which is the foundation of a long life. Now, I do live blood analysis in my clinic, so for most of my patients who come in, we will take some of their blood, put it under the microscope and look at their blood cells. And this is where you can often see damage to cell membranes. And I always explain to my patients that your cell membrane, so that's the bit that holds everything together in the cell, is not just like a bag. It's not a bag that holds the contents of the cell together. This membrane is biologically so active. It's got receptors on it that allow for things like thyroid hormone to lodge and get into the cell. And so if these membranes are damaged, ultimately the cells can't function as well as they should. And if at cellular level, your health is declining, everything will follow, organs will follow, and the whole body will follow from there as well. So as I mentioned last week, one of my goals this year is to remove all processed foods from my diet. Now, if I'm being honest, I thought I was already pretty close to that goal. I believed that I'd mostly cut out processed foods, but when I started to really take stock of what I was eating, I noticed that there was more slipping in than I had realized, and it was the hidden ultra-processed foods that caught me off guard. These are things like sauces and condiments, ready-made dressings, for instance. Even that dollop of mayonnaise or a seemingly healthy stir-fry sauce can be packed with preservatives, sugars, artificial ingredients. So the realization has been a bit of a wake-up call. It showed me how easy it is to overlook the small things that add up. And it reinforced the importance of truly knowing what's in the food that we eat. And not just the big, obvious things, but the sneaky hidden culprits as well. In fact, one of the things that, a lot of my patients have moved to plant-based milks, which is great. And if you look at the ingredients of the milks, you start seeing that they're often packed with things like emulsifiers. And so people think they're doing a good thing by moving to a plant-based milk. And then when you look at the ingredients, it's not that great. So there are some really good alternatives or some really good options out there as well. But I'm going to encourage you to look at the labels and look what's in the products that you are having. So let's talk a bit about the science and why ultra-processed foods are so detrimental to our health span. So the first thing we have to think about here is inflammation. So many ultra-processed foods are packed with refined sugars and unhealthy fats, and this can trigger chronic inflammation, which is at the root of most age-related diseases, including heart disease, diabetes, Alzheimer's, and cancer. And, very often when my patients come in and we test and we can see that their inflammatory markers are raised, we kind of go through a process of trying to understand what's causing this. Is there an infection going on in the gut? Or, is there gum disease? What is driving inflammation? And a lot of the time, it can be these hidden ultra-processed foods can be a big source of inflammation in the body. And I've seen this in my practice where people remove these foods and those inflammatory markers begin to drop. The second area where these foods have got a really big impact is on our gut microbiome. Now, the bacteria that live in our gut thrive on fiber and polyphenols. These are nutrients that are almost entirely absent in your ultra-processed foods. So if your gut microbiome becomes disrupted, that's going to affect not just digestion, but brain health and immunity. So we know that nearly 80% of your immune system resides in the gut. And if that gut isn't working well, that's going to impact on your immune system. 90% of your serotonin is produced in the gut. So think about that. If your gut is being damaged, think about what it's going to do to your mood and your well-being. And then we have blood sugar spikes as well. So ultra-processed foods often have a high glycemic index. That means they cause rapid spikes and crashes in our blood sugar, which can lead to insulin resistance over time. Now, remember how we talked about raised insulin levels being an early marker for diabetes? This is exactly where those foods in and how they contribute to the whole picture. And then we have oxidative stress. Now, many processed foods contain additives and preservatives that increase oxidative stress in the body. That leads to cellular damage and accelerated aging. So here we're back to talking about those cell membranes, and oxidative stress causes damage to the lining of the cells. And you damage those cells, you're going to age faster. In fact, our cell membranes are primarily made up of fat. So thinking about the type of fats that you have in your diet is really important, because if you're having poor quality fats, those fats are going to incorporate into those cell membranes, and you end up having a crap cell membrane. That's the easiest way to put it. So if you're thinking, I'm ready to make a change, Here are a few simple swaps just to get started. So breakfast cereals, I would swap that out even with something like whole oats topped with fresh fruits and nuts. Or if you're going onto a keto option, thinking about eggs, which are very rich in choline, can be a really good replacement. So kind of an omelette with, some spinach or tomatoes or mushrooms can be a really useful one as well. And also, I like to encourage people to think differently about breakfast. In the West, we're so narrow-minded about what breakfast foods are, cereals or toast or eggs. But in lots of cultures, your breakfast could be just about anything. So I spent quite a lot of time in China, in Singapore, and you could get a chicken stir fry or a chicken congee for breakfast. So, we need to just open our minds about what breakfast foods really are. And then snacking, replacing processed snacks, crisps and biscuits, but even things like your granola bars and things, have a look at those ingredients. They may not be as good as you think. Swapping that out with whole foods like fruits and nuts, or even a small piece of dark chocolate. And just a point here as well, because people often, if you've been eating some ultra-processed foods, your taste buds have changed. So you might find that nuts or fruit and things may not taste as flavorful. They may be quite boring. But over time, the more you cut those ultra-processed foods out, your taste buds will again reset to enjoy natural foods. But in the beginning, it might be a little tricky, especially if you're kind of used to quite flavorful foods. Think about choosing whole grains, thinking about brown rice, quinoa, barley, instead of cooked flavored grains or instant noodles. And then cook from scratch whenever possible, even if it's just a couple of meals a week. When you control the ingredients, you can control the impact on your health span. Here I often hear people say, well, I don't have the time. It's time to think, what am I going to cook? And it's time to go and get all the ingredients and then, put it all together. So there are lots of, these kind of delivery companies you can use. There's Mindful Chef, lots of companies where the ingredients are pretty good, where you get your box delivered with all your ingredients in and you cook it from scratch. It still means you have to cook, but it's so much easier because you're not having to think about getting all the ingredients together and getting, going out to get that. So the box arrives and you just cook from scratch. But remember, it's not about perfection. It's about making better choices more often than not. And each little step you take away from an ultra-processed food is a step towards a longer, healthier life. And so ultimately what we'll be wanting to do is just to make small changes that stack up over a long period of time to have an impact. So as I continue my own experiment this year, I'll keep you updated on my progress and the science that I uncover and the habits that I'm building. And I'll also be bringing in some experts along the way to share their insights on nutrition, habit formation, longevity, and lots more. So next week, we'll explore how to move from knowing what to do to actually doing it, and how do we form new habits, break old ones, and make sure that these changes stick for the long term. And I think this is where so many of us struggle, and I can't wait to dig into this topic with you. I do hope today's episode has given you a fresh perspective on what's in your food and how it impacts on your health span. But remember, small changes can lead to big results. You don't have to overhaul everything overnight. Just start with one meal, one snack, or even just starting to read the ingredient list next time you shop. So thank you so much for tuning in. If you're enjoying the podcast, please share it with a friend, leave a review, and connect with me on social media. I'd love to hear your thoughts and answer your questions. And until next time, take care of yourself, make choices that nourish not just your body, but your future. And I'll see you next time.